Thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to serve you the news review and we dig into the papers. We'll be joined shortly by Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. But before I say a good morning to him, good morning, Mapitso.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm okay. How was the weekend?
Weekend was good. It was chilled.
It was chilled?
Yeah.
I remember you said on Friday that you were going to chi with the big boys.
Oh,
Did that happen?
But I told you, I am the big boy, so...
Oh, right.
I'll be chilling with my
How could I forget?
Yeah, I'm the big boy.
You are the big boy.
Yes, please. Yesterday, I went to KOD's event, Rhythms on the Runway.
Oh,
10th edition.
Yeah.
It was amazing as always. Every year, KOD always seems to just get bigger and better. So congratulations, a huge congratulations.
I don't know how I forgot that because a friend wanted to take me and I guess it all got...
So why didn't the friend remind you?
That's the whole point. I have to get back to this person and find out because I had expressed interest in going.
Oh, really?
And this person had tickets.
I see.
So it completely skipped my mind. I'll have to find out now what happened.
Yeah.
But it was fun, right?
If you really wanted to go, you would have made a plan to go.
No, the thing is, Charlie, I plot these things on my agenda, but there are no reminders.
I mean, listen.
But it was fab.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Like it always is. It was the green edition. So sustainable fashion, green fashion.
Wow, that's interesting.
How do we,
especially as we're talking COP27 and climate change and everything.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
It was fantastic. Hopefully we get to see you on the runway one of these years. Yeah,
sure. I should, come to think of it, I should do some modeling stuff. What do you think? It wouldn't be bad, right? You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
I was just trying to hype you small where you take him, but...
Sure, we take a World Cup, we don't give any chance to any.
We beg you.
But it's good to see you. And
talking about the World Cup.
Oh, Charlie.
Yeah.
Qatar has become the first nation to host the World Cup and lose in the opening match.
Can you imagine?
And there's a whole lot surrounding that because there was this allegation by somebody who... From what our sports team tells us, is a bit of a hater when it comes to Qatar, suggesting that there was a bribery incident and all of that. But if there were, it didn't show.
Yeah.
Because Valencia and team, they downed Qatar like nobody's business.
They did an amazing job. But they might have lost the game. But they won our hearts with that beautiful opening ceremony.
It was spectacular.
And Morgan Freeman always, man.
Morgan is Morgan.
Morgan is Morgan. Yeah,
I love that man to bits, especially when he played God in that movie. I've forgotten the title.
I was about to mention the God factor, but I was like, hey, people say that vanity, I'm using the Lord's name in vain. So, yeah, Morgan Freeman, he's fantastic. He's fantastic, yeah.
Anyway, so let's get down to it. A whole lot to discuss. Mr. Brahima, Suleimana Brahima, is the Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. A very good morning to you, sir. All right, so we're trying to get Suleimana Brahima on board. In the interim, before Mapitso starts with the papers she has, she'll be kickstarting it. I have the Daily Graphic, Daily Guide, Ghanaian Publisher, Republic Press. Those are the newspapers I have, all four. And Mapitso Sebidi will also be coming through with other papers that she has on board. Mapitso?
Yeah, I have the Ghanaian Times, I have the Chronicle, and I also have, what do I have? The Finder, the Custodian, and the New Crusading Guide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with you as
well. All right, so let's start with the Ghanaian Times, and disaster looms somewhere in your hometown, Benjamin, and you'd have to pronounce it.
Which one is that?
Somewhere close to...
Angloga. Anyanui. Anyanui, I think. Angloga, Anyanui. No, just take what I pronounced. Even mine may be a little, but the Angloga, that one is Anyanui or Anyanui. It depends on the context.
Yeah, so as a Sandbar Blocks channel, communities' livelihoods in danger, town buried in sand, and another one disappears. We also have National Cathedral funds approved by Parliament. That's according to Mr. Ken Oforiato, who's the Finance Minister, and Professor Kwesi Botchwey passes on at 78, page 10. Support the Finance Minister on budget statement, Dr. Sibe Yeboah. Let's go to page 18, where the National Cathedral funds have been approved by Parliament, according to the Finance Minister. Quickly, all right, National Cathedral funds approved by Parliament. Let's read through that story quickly. The Finance Minister, Kenneth Foresta, says all the payments made for the National Cathedral were lawfully made. According to him, the payments were made from the contingency vote under the other government obligations vote and not from the contingency fund as alleged by the minority, responding to accusations that he breached the constitution in making payments to support the construction of the National Cathedral of Ghana. I have taken no money, and I quote, from the contingency fund to make payments for the National Cathedral. The Finance Minister explained that the contingency vote is a line under the other government obligation vote, which is approved by the Finance Committee and passed as part of the Annual Appropriation Acts passed by Parliament. The last one, according to him, in preparing the annual budget, the practice in that provision is made for expenditures that have not been fully costed at the time of the budget presentation. We know that on Friday he took his turn.
Right.
As that, what is it called?
The committee sitting for the motion of censure. I found it interesting, some of what he said on Friday, and a bit unsettling, some of what came up. But I guess we'll have to take it as it is. When he talks about the contingency fund, though, there is the contingency vote, yes, and the contingency fund. He may be saying that he did not use the contingency fund, but there are limitations when it comes to even the contingency vote and how much can be disbursed from it. So that raises question in itself about the sums involved and whether they were legal, so to speak. I mean, there are so many issues. Of course, no one expected the finance minister to come and sit there and condemn himself. But
definitely.
When he talks about he feels it in his soul and everything, I can understand him. But I feel we're simply not moving as politicians with the tenor of the public, what they feel.
He feels it personally, professionally, and in his soul.
And the people feel you should go.
And the people feel you should go, but he won't go. On that note, good morning to Mr. Sulemana Brahima, Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa. Mr. Brahima, good morning.
Good morning, Maps, and good morning, Ben. It's great to reconnect as usual.
How was your weekend?
Well, quite well, and I had to be thoughtful, reflective, because the situation requires that one should constantly be reflecting and thinking about how to overcome the challenges.
How to overcome the challenges, yeah? And the challenges never seem to end.
Exactly. So actually, I believe that it is something that everyone with courage would say to themselves, that the situation is one that is being felt, professionally, your soul and within your heart. I think that the situation is felt everywhere.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Brahima.
That's quite a play on words.
Yeah.
In your soul and in your heart, just like the finance minister said. But maybe before I know you're getting into other matters, what do you think about what the finance minister, Kenneth Foresta, says about the contingency fund and the contingency vote and disbursements from the contingency vote? We're talking the National Cathedral, among other things. What is your quick take on that?
Well, I think that the finance minister was basically being technical, but his explanation certainly doesn't take away the fact that the fund as was used towards the National Cathedral was not something that was approved. Indeed, even those of us who are non-finance people do know that as a nation, at the end of when the budget is approved, there certainly has to be a contingency vote, because things can happen on the spur of the moment, and it wouldn't be such that the finance minister has to go to Parliament to seek approval. For example, if there's a natural disaster, it is not something that is planned for, and it is not something that we pray for. And under circumstances like that, there must be money towards dealing with such incidents. And that is why the contingency vote is always approved. So it is not money that is approved for the finance minister to spend on things that we all know deserve some funding. Right from the beginning, we were told the cathedral is not going to be funded with public money or state money. People were going to make donations. Fundraising efforts were going to be intensified to raise money for it. So it is quite surprising that the finance minister will find it tenable that in the course of its construction, he dips his hand into public money, whether it's contingency vote or contingency fund, that doesn't matter. So it's for me an explanation that still doesn't wash. And like you said, certainly one wouldn't expect that he will come there and condemn himself as incompetent and somebody who has really run our economy into the ditch. So we look forward to what the recommendations of the committee will be and the ultimate debate in Parliament.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Brima. Another interesting story on page 13, Sanitation, Justice Ministry's planned prosecution of sanitation offenders. Benjamin, Mr. Brima. So the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources is collaborating with the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General to set aside specific dates for the trial of sanitation cases, which include construction of toilets. We also collaborate with the local government to enforce the bylaws requiring every household to have a decent toilet facility. It has therefore urged all households in the country to have a decent toilet facility in their homes to avoid being dragged to the law courts. According to the ministry, about 18% of Ghanaians were still indulged in open defecation, and we really need to do something about this as a country, I quote. We'll pursue aggressively the One House, One Toilet initiative to ensure households get decent toilets in their homes, and will prosecute offenders. And then we also have one person, very sad story there, one person confirmed dead in the fatal crash at Boso. I'm not sure, those pictures or those images were extremely upsetting, but we know that one person was confirmed dead with 4 others injured in a fatal crash involving a truck and 5 other vehicles in the Prestia Honey Valley municipality of the Western region. The last story that I'll go to is Professor Kwesi passes on at 78. A former finance minister of finance, Professor Kwesi has passed on at the age of 78. He reportedly died on Saturday at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital in Accra, where he was receiving treatment over a short illness. Now, some facts on Professor. He's the longest serving Minister of Finance in Ghana, having served as Secretary of Finance during the PNDC military government from 1982 to 1993. He was also appointed by the late Jerry John Rawlings to lead efforts in stabilizing the country's collapsed economy from 1982 to 1993. His leadership and commitment to the structural changes to our economy in the late 80s were critical, and the impact still with us today. That's a member of the ruling New Party, Gabby Asare-Ocheredako, who said that. So the Sanitation Ministry to prosecute some people who would default to that law. They say that one household, one toilet. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, you also saw that accident that happened at Bogoso. Do you have any thoughts? And the last story, Professor Kwesi, who passes on at 78, the longest serving finance minister. Mr. Brima, any thoughts on the stories shared so far?
Well, let me start with the very sad developments. I read about the incident in Bogoso, and it's certainly a very, very sad development. Of course, an accident. We wish such things would not happen, but once they happen, what we have to do is to learn lessons from it and to see how we can avoid incidents like that in the future. And so our sincere condolences to the family of the bereaved, and we're hoping that proper investigations will be conducted so that if somebody was reckless, that then resulted in what had happened, such persons can be taken on. But apart from that, also learning whatever lessons that we can learn from that to prevent future occurrences. Of course, the passing of Professor Kwesi is another very, very sad development for our nation. Kwesi is an iconic figure. Growing up, and listening to him on GBC, read the budget statement annually, even though as a child, I can still remember, how people would expect, is there going to be petrol increases? Is there going to be lorry fare increases? Is there going to be increases in salaries? Because those days, all those things were reflected in the budget. It's not like today where the situation is such that You wake up in the morning and GPRT says, they are increasing the lorry fares on Saturday or on Sunday, or the current situation where you are told, in the next pricing window, fuel prices are going to increase or decrease marginally.
Yeah.
And so he's played a very instrumental role in our national development. At one point, tried to lead the National Democratic Congress as a flag bearer. It didn't work, but nonetheless, within his party and at the national level, he's really played a very significant role. And I believe we would all pick some lessons and be guided by some of the things that he did whilst he was alive, so that we also will be celebrated in our lives and even after our lives. So commiserations to his family. Sanitation, a big thing in our country. We've always been talking about it. The current government said Accra was going to be the cleanest city in Africa. We are nowhere close to that. Governments upon governments, efforts are made, but it appears we are where we are because government itself doesn't act properly, and citizens are also continuing their misconduct of polluting everywhere. I don't know, for example, why as a country we still indulge in this whole exercise of using polythenes for everything, from sachet water to black polythene bags to everything is about polythene. Kenya, Gambia, other countries have managed to ban the use of polythene just as a way of cleaning the environment. But in our country, the government would always want to pursue the cheapest way and pursue the most vulnerable to show that it is doing something, rather than the big policy initiatives that have to be undertaken to ensure that these menaces are dealt with. So without people being educated, people being motivated not to do some of the things they do, you can arrest everybody, prosecute everybody, but there will be little change.
There will be little change. The last one I want to touch on is the World Cup. Did you catch the opening ceremony, and how was it?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I just had a little bit of time watching the game itself. And certainly from the pictures, you could see this was such a beautiful facility, and it's quite enticing. I just wish our Black Stars all the best in this endeavor, and we hope that they do better than we've done in previous competitions.
Definitely.
Right, Suleimana, let's quickly get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. Quintessential statesman, politician, tributes pour in for Professor Kwesi Botchwey. There's already been talk about him and his sad demise in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. There's a picture of them that is trending. And when I say them, I'm referring to P.V. Obeng, who has met his maker, then former President Rawlings, who has also been called to eternity, and now Professor Kwesi Botchwey. And they fall in line from right to left, almost as though, like some have suggested on social media, that they knew the order in which they would go. But a sad situation, a big blow to our country. There's also, I've been honest in fiscal reporting, Ken Ofori-Atta defends stewardship. 2022 World Cup kicks off. Senegal play today. On the back page, there's a picture of Koulibaly. I'll get into some details of that. But some quick stories to take a look at. Use of Ghana card for voting. NIA EC system integration on course. That's according to head of the NIA, Professor Atefua. And he says that the two institutions have begun high-level discussions to create an integrated system for identifying registered voters and registering qualified individuals who turn 18 years ahead of the 2024 elections. The two are currently drafting a memorandum of understanding, among other initiatives, to guide the effective operationalization of their systems to interface for purposes of data validation and so on. The executive secretary of the NIA, Professor Atefua, confirmed this at a press conference, a press soiree in Accra last Friday. We also know that a deputy chairperson of the EC, I'm talking about Dr. Eric Bosman-Asari, at a multi-stakeholder forum organized by the National Peace Council in Accra last Tuesday, also spoke about the collaboration to ensure that no eligible voter was disenfranchised. That is the first story I'll take a look at. There's also a letter on page 10 of the paper, Ghana and Galamsey, the presidential powers, and it makes for interesting reading. It's on page 10 of the paper. You can check it out. But I'll just do some international stories and wrap with sports, and I'll bring you in, Suleimana. Equatorial Guineans vote in national elections. We all know Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo has been in power for quite a long time. He arrived at a polling station in the capital, Malabo, yesterday to cast his vote. He's 80 years. He's been in power for 43 years, and it's only certain that when he leaves, those around him, his children and others, will take over from there. Some have called this a very sad situation in Equatorial Guinea. And at 80, having ruled for 43 years, he wants another 7-year term. I was listening to the BBC this morning, and a reporter from Equatorial Guinea called all of this a big sham and a shame. That is one of the stories there. On the back page, when we talk about Senegal facing off with the Netherlands, the fact is, Senegal and the Netherlands have never played together at the World Cup. This would be the first time. When Senegal qualified in 2002 and 2018, the Netherlands did not make it. But this time they're going to lock horns. And the other bit is that the Netherlands have the record. They've won 3, drawn 1, and lost none against African opposition. And when you look at the record of Senegal, they've won 3, drawn 3, and lost 2. All the wins against European opposition at the World Cup. Quick reactions, Suleimana?
Well, I can only wish Senegal the very best. They are the reigning African champions, and so we naturally should expect them to be one of our torchbearers among the teams that are participating from Africa. And of course, Senegal is also here in West Africa. It's a country that we cover. And I should say that my boss, the chairperson of the Media Foundation for West Africa, is a Senegalese based in Senegal. And so naturally, I feel some sort of allegiance and sentiments towards Senegal. And so I can only wish them well and pray that they are able to overcome the challenge this afternoon or this evening. Of course, the Netherlands has traditionally been a very strong team. And so one can only be very, very hopeful that they are able to get a good scoreline, if not a win, at least a draw.
There's also the bit about the NIA card, EC integration, and then Equatorial Guinea elections.
Well, Equatorial Guinea, we know the track record. The man has been in power perhaps since I was born and still being in power. Some of these things you ask yourself, what is the AU's position? The African Union talking about is, protocol on good governance, on elections and anti-corruption, all the other protocols that they have, and Agenda 2063, good governance, the empowerment of our people on the continent. What is the position of the AU? If somebody were to oust Teodoro Obiang as being, engaging in undemocratic conduct, would the AU then react with deployment of military force and a ban imposed on the country, or what? I'm not in any way then saying that these things should justify any military intervention, but I'm just saying that leadership on the continent must act in ways that really support the cause of the people and not the cause of individual leaders. On the NIA, let me say that I have found the conduct of the current leadership of the Electoral Commission very, very appalling. And I say so because over the period, they have patently failed in building national consensus on matters that are very, very crucial to the elections of this country and therefore the integrity of our democracy and the survival of our democracy. It happened in the last elections. A few months or so before elections, changes were made in terms of how people can register, a new register, the qualifications to be on the register in terms of what cards you must have and all of that, despite the challenges that people had at the time with, acquiring the NIA cards. Now we are barely 2 years from the next elections, and I should say even 1.5, because the electoral processes and the campaigns and all of that gets so heated about 6 months into the elections. And you don't want to make any significant decisions 6 months into an election, as happened in the previous one. Now, this is such a major development. If the NIA cards are supposed to be used as the basis for elections, it requires a lot of national conversation. And if that is the decision that has been made, why are we not seeing a lot of national dialogues, public engagement, stakeholder engagement, and getting stakeholder feedback? What should the EC be doing? How should it be doing? How do we build public confidence to ensure that, look, this government is the government in power. It is within this government that we have been successful with the implementation of the NIA processes. And therefore, the natural tendency for people to believe that, is the government having anything to hide? Do they want to use the NIA database to manipulate an election or something, that could be suspicious? It is important that we engage to erase any sort of perceptions like that away from the people as a way of building confidence towards the election, ensuring electoral integrity, all of that. But we are seeing literally nothing of that. All we hear is that a press soiree is being organized, an announcement is made. A stakeholder engagement is being held by the National Peace Council, right, and then we are told what is going to happen. I don't think that is how electoral processes should be managed, particularly in countries or in places like African countries, where there's always agitation and contention on matters of elections. And that is why I say, look, the EC has certainly been very, very appalling. And I'm surprised also because of the leadership that we have at the EC.
Well, let's quickly get into other stories, Mapitso.
All right, let's go to the Finder. It will be a tragedy not to use Ghana card to vote in 2024 from Professor Atufo. And we also have Republic. Okay, we have Black Stars player, technical team sign code of conduct to avoid Brazil debacle. But on page 2, the Asante is urging the judicial service, and he's asking them to strengthen the use of technology in justice delivery. He said using modern technology at all levels would help to reduce cost, increase access to justice delivery, enhance transparency, and reinforce the trust of the public in the judicial system. Atumfo Setutu II said the COVID-19 pandemic and its accompanying social limitations had challenged society to find new ways such as technological advancements to address the myriad of challenges. So the ideals of transparency, accountability, and trust were vital drivers of sustained progress and development of the judiciary, an important constitutional institution to aid good governance, where technology was crucial. We also have a very interesting story here on page, okay, I can't find it now. Yeah. So page 9, just the second one. Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority, Professor Kenneth Tufo, says it will be a tragedy not to use Ghana card for election 2024. He's convinced that there's no reasonable basis for that not to happen. And he said the EC has submitted a constitutional instrument to Parliament seeking to use Ghana card to compile the new voters register. According to the electoral management body, the Ghana card is the most authentic means of identifying Ghanaians, and therefore the Commission's decision to use it in compiling a new database of voters for election 2024. Professor Atofua assured that the NIA is poised to clear all backlogs and register new people if the Ghana card will be used for the 2024 general election. And then we have the last story. 1.1 million Ghanaian males jobless in second quarter of 2022. Data released by the Ghana Statistical Services indicates that about 1.1 million males 15 years and older employed in the first quarter of the year were either unemployed or out of the labor force in the second quarter. So in percentage terms, the service said 9.4% of the employed males in the first quarter were unemployed. Okay, so let me take that again. In percentage terms, the service said 9.4% of the employed males in the first quarter were unemployed in the second quarter, with an additional 15.7% outside of the labor force. The statistics were generated from the 2022 Annual Household Income and Expenditure Service. Now, in the Upper East region, 7 out of every 10, which is 69.0% males employed in the first quarter, were no longer employed in the second quarter. I think that is quite worrying, Benjamin, and that's like when you see like the rise in suicide, especially with males, is that some of these males have to provide for their families, and now they can't provide for their families because they are unemployed, and then the pressure just keeps on getting worse. And then you know the case of suicide, the rates, suicide rates start increasing, violence starts increasing. So I think this is something very worrying.
It is indeed worrying. And even before Suleimana comes in the Upper East region, right, 7 out of every 10 males were unemployed, who were employed in the first quarter, lost their work in the second quarter. And these are not things that you can take for granted. Over 1 million males, we're not even talking females, losing their work. It also talks about youth unemployment and all of that. I mean, when you look at the statistics from the Ghana Statistical Service, it's heartbreaking, really. And you also look at what some people in the second quarter were earning. Okay?
Yeah.
We know the minimum wage is 13.53. As of January next year, it will shoot up to 14.88, about a 10% increment.
Yeah.
But you're looking at people earning as low as 9 cedis, 90 pesos, less than 10 cedis. So it paints quite a gory picture about the economic downturn and where it has pushed some people.
Yeah.
You know, millions of people. And this also reflects other reports. I've forgotten whether it was the IMF or the World Bank that said that over 1 million Ghanaians had slipped into poverty, below the poverty line.
Yeah.
You know?
I saw that.
So all of this now starts making a lot of sense. But to you, Suleimana Brahima, how do you digest all of this?
Very, very depressing statistics, but it is something that we certainly are aware of, even without the statistics. And I believe that these are the indicators that should make the finance minister and the managers of our country be feeling depressed in their hearts and in their souls, and feel that professionally they've not done what it takes to really get this country going. If you have a situation where you have 7 out of 10 people who ought to be doing some jobs are unemployed, and in fact, those who had jobs in the first quarter losing those job opportunities in the second quarter, certainly that is very, very troubling, and that is certainly not an indicator of progress. It's actually an indicator of retrogression. Right. If you know, we have created the National Youth Employment Agency, but it is actually an agency to make people rich than to create jobs for people, as the name suggests. Over the years, it's been an agency where deals are made, people loot from state resources rather than using it to create employment for our people. We know this government introduced this propaganda employment scheme called NAPCO, and within a matter of a year or two, it ceased to work, and quite clearly it was introduced for purposes of elections. So they are comfortable using the people and dumping them once they achieve their objectives. And that is why we as the people in this country must continue to demand that the governments that we elect do the right thing, rather than continuing to loot from the state and resorting to technicalities to absolve themselves of incompetence and malpractices. It's a sad, how can we do?
Suleimana, we have just about 3 minutes. For me, I'll squeeze in 2 papers very quickly because the stories are tied. Ghana will rise again, Finance Minister, strengthen fight against terrorism, that is the National Security Minister, and the story there, Kwesi Botchwey dead, the Daily Guide. But there's also in the Ghanaian publisher, blanket-free SHS, unsustainable, Professor Ivan Adai, a former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, and NIA boss, wife sue ex-staff for defamation. The stories, though, that I want to link from the 2 papers. The Daily Guide says, let Oforiatta read budget. Esibe Yeboah, I believe the former head of the Finance Committee of Parliament begs MPs. And tied to that, the Ghanaian publisher, Finance Minister confounds his critics. What do you think about the charge by Dr. Makasibe Yeboah? Let Oforiatta read budget as he begs, and the Finance Minister confounds his critics, according to the Ghanaian publisher. Is that the picture you got from last Friday?
Absolutely not. I certainly saw more revelations about why we are where we are, rather than, something that reflects the competence of the finance minister. I said on Newsfile over the weekend that indeed I admire his calm demeanor and the way he presents things, but that is different from being convinced about his competence and the credibility of whatever he put out there. And that is why I am surprised that the respected former chair of the Finance Committee would at this stage be urging that we should let Oforiatta present the budget. Why? What is the problem? Is he the only person who can, handle the finance ministry?
It's interesting because Dr. Esibe Yeboah's name has also popped up when it comes to who could be a finance minister moving into the future.
Well, he's somebody that a lot of people respect. If you talk to people in Parliament, he will tell you, look, we needed somebody like Makasibe Yeboah to be the chair of the Finance Committee in Parliament and to carry all of us along. He's deep in terms of knowledge in the economy and economics and all of that. Unfortunately, the same government, it is actually this same leadership of President Akufo-Addo that actually orchestrated the exit of Makasibe Yeboah. It is not a secret. Everyone knows that there was that orchestration to get him out and to have his replacement win the primaries to contest, because they felt, well, Esibe Yeboah was not playing ball. It is something that is not a secret. And so we hear the finance minister say Ghana will rise again. Certainly, we all believe and know that Ghana will rise again, but not with him at the helm of affairs. If with him at the helm of affairs, Ghana would certainly not be rising. But we believe that he would exit because he cannot continue to be there when almost the entire nation says, look, you must go even if you are our best player. We don't want you at this stage. And right. I'm confident that without him, Ghana will rise again.
Ghana will rise again. Mr. Brima, it is always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a fantastic, fantastic day.
Thank you so much, Maps. Thank you, Ben.
Maybe before you go, do you have any predictions for the Black Stars as they lock horns with Portugal? Any predictions?
Well, I can only say that I pray and hope that we win. To be honest with you, it is out of nationalistic spirit of patriotism, that I would think that the Black Stars can defeat Portugal. But it is possible. I'm sure with the sheer determination and the exuberance of confidence that we witnessed, anything is possible. And I hope that we would overcome them.
Okie doke.
The Black Stars, eh?
The Black Stars could.
They disappoint.
They could surprise us all. But come to think of it, they are signing some, like you said, so that we don't have a repeat of 2014 where they were asking for money and all of that, the entire hullabaloo and money being, flown to them. But if you look at the $100,000 that each of the team, including the technical staff and others, are going to get, Charlie, that's like 1.5 million Ghana cedis. Because it's 15:1. Hey, someday we'll get there. We go play football by thunder, by fire.
Oh, sharp. But you, dear, it's too late. Your age.
It's too waiting.
And now we go.
I'll use my football age.
You use your football age.
Football age. Yeah. I'm 22.
Have to cut the beard and shave the beard and Charlie.
It will happen. Anyway, we're grateful, Suleimana, for joining the conversation. But up next, we have sports coming your way. And of course, the World Cup has kicked off. What can you expect moving forward? More on that in sports. Do stay.